Welcome to Majority Rules. This is Season 1, Episode 3. We're still here. This is a podcast about Mizzou Athletics Majority, which is Olympic sports athletes. I am Karen Steger. I am your host. I'm also the softball and gymnastics beat writer at Rock M Nation and the Olympic sports manager. Abigail, let's go to you.
Hi, my name is Abigail Kaptaskis. I'm the senior here at Mizzou, and I'm also the track and field and cross-country beat writer.
Matthew?
I'm Matthew Gustafson, the volleyball and wrestling beat writer here at Rock M. I'm going to be updating you on the first weekend of Mizzou Volleyball action coming up soon. And then also we got a new piece of information about the wrestling schedule to share with you as well.
Fantastic. And Dylan joining us from the Student Center.
Yes. Hi, I'm Dylan. I am a sophomore at Mizzou. I am currently the soccer and women's basketball writer here at Rock M. Obviously, soccer still right in the middle of their non-conference schedule, so we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about as they continue on in that march towards SEC play. Pretty light week on women's basketball, so going to be talking a lot of soccer from me today.
And then Rory, our fifth person, is not with us, but she did record something for us that we'll have Levi, our podcast producer, stick in there later. She covers all of the sports that we want to make sure that we cover. So swimming, golf, tennis, everything else. All right, so let's go to in-season sports and start with Dylan.
Starting off with soccer, it was a pretty light week. Right now, we're in the middle of their kind of bye week in a sense. So soccer's taken some time to rest, recuperate. Well, everyone was in the middle of watching football. They were playing in Miami against, of course, the Miami, Florida Hurricanes.
What's football?
Game was initially pushed back by So that game was originally pushed back by an hour due to lightning delays, but eventually continued onward. Mizzou got off to a fast start, had a couple really good shots on goal. I want to shout out Keegan Good again, the senior midfielder, had a really, really good chance, just couldn't finish. Unfortunately, Miami then, right before the half, gets one goal, head into the half up 1-0. Then as that home team comes out with a strong push in the second half and extends the lead to 2-0. Then Mizzou, they just continue to push down the stretch, being down. They finally get one goal, which I know you have queued up, Karen, from the freshman, Landis Canada, who not only scored, but played every single minute in this game, which is extremely impressive as a forward and as a freshman to not only just have that sort of lung capacity and the ability to go for that long, but also just to be able to kind of survive the mental aspect of the sports. So those full 90 minutes from Landis Canada, 2-1 to Miami. Currently, the team sitting at 1-3-1, now coming off back-to-back losses. Can talk a little bit about what's upcoming next, but hopefully looking to get right with a home match here on Sunday.
Let me pull up that tweet from...
I mean, with a last name like Canada, there are so much that you can do. It's definitely one of the better names that Mizzou athletes have to offer. I would say it's up there with Chase, Missouri, but I don't think it touches it.
So if you were to, I know it's early in the season, but if you were to award a freshman award right now, would she be your top one for sure?
I mean, 100%. Like on the defensive end, they haven't been playing a lot of the freshmen in the midfield as well. They've been cycling into rookie. Actually got the assist on that one from the corner. Mia DeVroe had a couple really, really good opportunities throughout the early season, but what Landis Canada has been able to do, come in and start, I believe, every single game for this team. I mean, I'm kind of spoiling it here, but she's definitely earning my MVP honors of the week for the goal, the consistent play, and just being a warrior night in and night out for this Mizzou team, being able to make an impact with such depth that they have. Bree Buells didn't play in the first couple games, but she was finally back in action against Miami coming off the bench. I think that as a returning piece is going to help out this Mizzou offense a lot as they still look to find some of their rhythm. But I think what Landis Canada has done as a freshman, I would say that these offensive struggles, nothing related to her. She's been an absolute spark plug and been a really good running mate for Kylie Simmons early on.
What do you think that they need to do to kind of get over the hump? Like, it just seems like they're going to get there and then they just don't.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I hate to put a lot of pressure on one player, but you'd like to see Kylie Simmons get that first goal of the season, the scoring prowess that she provides, her leadership role with the team. Like, just to be able to see one go in not only does massive things for her confidence, it does great things for the team. And it's kind of like that dam breaking. Once you can get one to go, hopefully they should all start flowing out. I mean, she, during the entire preseason, just couldn't stop scoring goals. And so one is bound to break through at some point. Sunday they play SEMO. So I think that's a perfect opportunity. The SEMO team they're very talented, but they aren't quite on the same level as Missouri. I believe Missouri's won both the matchups. They won last year 4-0 in Columbia. I'm expecting a very similar story, and I would expect Kylie Simmons to be involved. I think another thing as we head into SEC play is, I've talked about it in my Tiger Targets last week, is the middle 50 of the game. Missouri's done a really good job in the first 20 minutes. They've gotten a lot of good chances. They've done a really good job in the last 20 minutes, but it's really that middle 50 where they've allowed a lot of goals, let the pace of play kind of go away. I think a lot of that is you see players like Kylie Simmons, like Milena Fimore on those bench players to try and make an impact. And so far, something hasn't clicked. It's allowed just enough chances to reach the defense and make it through the back line. So I think to start the game, the Tigers look really good. To end the game, it looks really good. But whether it's those players stepping up, whether it's changing up the rotations if you're Stephanie Golan, just trying something different to try and control that middle 50, especially those last 10 minutes leading into half and the last 10 minutes out of halftime. Really, those are going to be the difference makers for the Tigers in the SEC.
That sounds good. Now, I know coming up, you've got a new Tiger Tales, which you had mentioned to me earlier would cover SEMO, and then the Duke game, which is next Thursday. And there's a special reason. I think if people tune in, we can tell them what that special reason is for why you're grouping games from different weeks together.
Yes. So I'm guessing you want me to say it right now.
Yes.
Yes. I'm currently working on a feature for Coach Steph. Apologies. I don't know how close you want to keep it to the chest. Me go on. I'm going to and past a part of her life and her soccer journey, and so that is going to come out right before she gets the chance to play her alma mater in Duke. And I'm very excited to kind of sit down and pick her brain, because I don't think people understand here in Columbia just how good of a coach she is, what she's been able to do at the lower levels. She had a really good run at Minnesota a couple years ago, Durham, and then over in Minneapolis. So it's been a lot of moving around for Coach Golan, but I'm excited to tell her story. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited to read about that. I can't wait. And we're not going to tell anybody else that you're doing that. So people will only know if they listen to this podcast. All right, Matthew, to you.
I love it.
The Missouri Volleyball Tigers took the court for regular season action the first time this year in Omaha. Now they've faced Omaha, the University of Nebraska Omaha, in exhibition. They were not facing Omaha, or UNO, if you want to go by the abbreviate the letters of it. But they were in Omaha at the Blue Jay Invitational hosted by Creighton. They faced Drake on Friday, Creighton on Saturday, NC State on Sunday. They came out of there with 2 blowout wins and a blowout loss. Obviously, the blowout loss being to Creighton, one of the maybe 10 best, I think you could argue, teams in the country right now. They looked very impressive that opening weekend. But you know who else looked impressive the opening weekend? The Mizzou Tigers. When I say 2 blowout wins, I mean dominant. They dominated at the net against Drake. They hit 294 compared to 177 for Drake. Michael Vernon, the transfer from Oregon State, all Pac-12 honorable mention last season. Her Mizzou debut, she had 18 kills on a 472 hitting percentage and 13 digs. That is just an incredibly impressive performance. Now, something that was a little bit surprising to come out of that first match was that Sierra Dudley was not the starter. However, she was the starter for those next 2 matches, so it looks like they were just kind of saving her health, kind of her stamina for the next 2 matches that they faced. And it worked out pretty well. Didn't matter too much against Creighton, to be honest. They lost a respectable first set, 21-25. They came really close to taking a set from Creighton the second set. They lost 23-25. They actually had a higher hitting percentage than Creighton in that second set, but they also had 5 service errors, which I think was really one of the key differences during that set. And then they just kind of got blown out a little bit in the third set. They came so close in set 2, and I think they kind of used up all their energy there. So they're 1-1 heading into the next game against NC State. This is a team that was kind of snubbed from the NCAA tournament last season, and they're projected to finish in the top half of the ACC, kind of in the second tier of that conference. And Mizzou blew them out. I mean, they were dominant, especially the first 2 sets. They had 25-20. NC State kind of went on a very last-second run in the first set that made it look closer than it was. 25-15, a double-digit victory in set 2, and then 25-23 in the third set, much closer. But that was an instance where they kind of got up big, and either they let their foot off the gas a little bit, they started to make some mistakes that they hadn't made all match, and then NC State just kind of went on a bit of a crazy run at the very end, trying to kind of have that last-ditch effort. But when you look at the hitting percentages for that match, Mizzou hit over 400 the first 2 sets. Then they hit below 125 for the third one, but they held NC State to a hitting percentage below 230 in each set, which is really good defensively. And they held them to a phenomenal 139 hitting percentage across the match. Wow. They had 5 blocks as well. And during this NC State match, they played what I've termed as smash mouth volleyball, because they were heavily using their middle blockers on the attack. They had a lot of blocks. They also had a lot of kills. I believe that there were 18 combined kills between Colleen Finney and Reagan Haith, who actually is a Nebraska native, so she had a pretty big fan section during the tournament. But they were using them. Michael Vernon was attacking from the back row at the middle, which we hadn't really seen the first 2 matches. So NC State just had no answer for this tactic, and Mizzou was able to dominate this way. And Sierra Dudley, credit, she had a phenomenal match from the service line, setting as well, and she was able to really distribute the ball evenly between her 5 main hitters, the 2 outside hitters, Jordan Ilefit right side, and then the 2 middle blockers, which meant that NC State just really didn't have many answers until that final set. So overall, 2-1 was the expectation heading in. I think they met it. You would have liked to see them take at least a set from Creighton. But again, that's a top 15 team, a team that may very well be in the top 10 by this time next week and is a dark horse Final Four contender. So that's not really that much of a concern. But the way that they dominated, both in terms in general and then also at the net specifically against Drake and NC State, was really eye-opening and leaves me with a lot of positive takeaways from this opening weekend. But MVPs of the weekend, number 1 is going to be Maya Sands. She passed the 1,000 career digs mark just a little bit into her third season. So 2,000 career digs isn't out of the realm of possibility for Sand. She could reach that by the time that she ends her career. And then obviously Jordan Iliff has been phenomenal. Second right now in kills on the team behind Michael Vernon, but she has also been very efficient. She's hitting over 300 right now on offense, which is absolutely phenomenal, especially when you look at her efficiency last year has taken a big step up. So if she can continue that throughout the rest of the season, she's going to be a really solid contender to return to all SEC contention. And those were the two that made the all tournament team, but then also the middle blocking in that first and third matches between Colleen Finney and Reagan Haith really stood out to me as well. They're much deeper. They're much improved at the middle blocker position this year. And overall, after seeing them beat up on NC State, I really think that they should end up going 10-2 during the rest of this non-conference schedule. Looking at what they have up next, they're going to be the NKU Invitational. They're facing Northern Kentucky on Friday. Should be an easy win. Then they get fourth-ranked Louisville on Saturday. Louisville actually lost today, but it was to another top 10 team, so nothing too shocking, though they did get swept, which was a bit surprising. Even so, this one is probably going to be a sweep for Louisville. And then you have South Dakota. So kind of similar to the opening weekend, I would expect them to go 2-1. They sweep two teams. They likely get swept by one team. But outside of Louisville, the toughest non-con opponent they have is Illinois, who is a middling to below average Big Ten team. And I feel like they should be able to take care of business against Illinois, not let up more than one set. In that, it's still early on, but I feel like if this team does what I'm expecting them to do based on the opening weekend, then they should likely be ranked in the top 25, either towards the end of the non-conference schedule or towards the beginning of the SEC schedule if they beat the two teams that they open up with in LSU and Texas A&M on the road. But one other thing, the AVCA poll, yes, that's what I was thinking of. It took me a second to remember what I was thinking of. The AVCA poll, they moved up a spot. They are now the unofficial 36th team in the country instead of 37th. And, so it's going to take them a while to move up, right? And the AVCA poll is kind of a little unpredictable. But they did move up. They moved up a spot, so it's progress.
So I did pay the astronomical Flow volleyball fee to watch the games this weekend. I actually was like, oh, I'll share it with my dad. And then they don't like it when you do that, when people are located at different spaces. So I'd be watching and then it'd be like, there's someone else watching from a different location. But like frantically text my father and be like, get off! I paid for this. You watch it later. But I was extremely impressed with Michael Vernon. Like, she was everywhere. It was incredible. And Creighton, I thought, really did a good job of kind of attacking her. Especially, I guess it was the second game. I noticed it more, that they kind of were getting to her a little bit more, but she also was playing so much. I feel like she had to have been getting a bit tired at one point. One thing I did want to mention about the Creighton game, I'm anxious to hear either you, Matthew, or you, Dylan, since you were there too. The announcers were talking about how they thought after that call was overturned in the second match, I think there was a call that was overturned, and Mizzou was up. Mizzou was up by like 2, and then something was overturned, and then Creighton went on like a spree and closed out the rest of the game. But they kept talking about how they thought that was the turning point, and that like after that happened, that Mizzou was like sure to lose before Creighton had even come back and scored all these points. Like, they thought, oh, this one call went the wrong way. And so that meant that Mizzou was out of it. And then it turned out that happened. But I wondered if you both saw something from being there that made you agree with that, or what do you think happened, how they were up, and then all of us, is Creighton just that much better?
I don't really remember a call being overturned and anything like really notable happening immediately afterwards. That could have been the case. I mean, it was a lot of volleyball that we watched, so maybe I'm just not fully remembering it. But I think the main things were really that's just a really good Creighton team, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have the height advantage. They're a veteran team. They have like 3 All-Americans. And then they have a middle blocker, Elise Getzinger, who transferred in from Kentucky, who has won a national title. And so it's Sweet 16 team. They know how to win games, right? They know how to win closeout games. Not that Mizzou doesn't, but Creighton, I think, is at another level, at least at this moment. And then also, like I said, I think the service errors really piled up in that second set and were kind of a killer for the Tigers. So I think between the service errors and then obviously Creighton making a late push, those were kind of the two main factors. And then you talked about Vernon. Yeah, she had a really impressive first match. And then she was really good the first 2 sets against Creighton, but then she had, I believe, something like a negative .167 hitting percentage in the third set, which really bogged her numbers down. So they're going to want to just bump her efficiency back up because she had a lot of kills, but at the end of the weekend, she wasn't the most efficient out there. So if you can bump her efficiency up above 250, like 275-ish, with the volume of kills that she gets, I think that's reasonable. They're also, with the way that they were distributing the ball in that third match against NC State, I think that that's going to take a lot of pressure off Vernon as well, because there were a lot of times where they knew it was going to her, right? So they could get ready their block, and it was going to be a lot easier for them to disrupt her and prevent her from getting the kill. So if they don't know where it's going, obviously she's going to be open a lot. It's going to lead to more easy kills for her. So I think that if they can continue that, where they have the middle blockers up the middle or Vernon going up the middle, ready to attack, then that would be a massive asset for this offense.
Awesome. So I guess one last thing for you, Matthew. What are you working on anything volleyball related? I know that you just finished your massive 5-day back-to-back volleyball position previews that were incredible. What's next volleyball wise?
Well, I'm going to have 3 match recaps, and I believe live reporting, so long as my schedule doesn't conflict with it, from the NKU Invitational, because that's also going to be on ESPN Plus, which I can still access because it's not actual ESPN, with that whole DirecTV thing going on. But yeah, that's what's going to be next. Hoping to start up the interview series. I think we had talked about I'd like to get it to an audio format this year. So obviously we can talk about that, not kind of hammer out the technical details at some point in the next week.
We love audio.
And hopefully get that up and running within the next couple of weeks. I think it would kind of take that interview series to the next level.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Abigail, cross country. Yay.
I'm a little biased, but I do believe it is one of the best fall sports outside. It was off and running last Friday at the home opener.
Literally.
And yes, thank you. I do love my puns. It was mostly a orientation for both the spectators and the runners to the new and transfer runners for Missouri's squad. Arkansas brought in a team for the women's race. They also did not run most of their starters. And then Missouri competed against Missouri Valley College and SLU. So it was definitely more of a time trial, but the new and transfer runners completely showed out. And we have breaking news from today. Missouri's Tyler Feiner won his first cross-country race back after redshirting his indoor and outdoor season last track. He was injured right before SEC's last cross-country. And in winning his race, he was the first Tiger to be named to the SEC Men's Runner of the Week team since 2019. So congratulations to Feiner. He had a phenomenal race, and he was one of the few returning runners who did race for Missouri, and he led the young pack really, really confidently. It was clear that he had ran that line of tangent many, many times. He had a smile on his face right after he crossed the finish, which after completing a 6K is completely impressive. So he was super comfortable. He just said in his interview, was very complimentary of his new runners, talked about how they definitely wanted to continue the pack running strategy that Livermore instilled last season. That looked like it was up and running again. I won't use that pun again. That was an accident. He was fabulous. He was challenged in the 4K by Rockbridge alum Andrew Hauser. Andrew Hauser ran unattached, meaning he couldn't score for the Tigers, but may earn a spot in the top 7 in upcoming meets. He placed 5th, but challenged first in the back 4K. And it was interesting because not very many spectators are back there. It's back in the weeds. You can get there if you're willing to sprint to the finish, but it was just myself and a few of the assistant coaches. And I heard one of them say, you know, he's definitely starting to look a little bit gassed. I think he definitely took it to the veterans from that 2nd to 3rd K. Probably could have paced himself a little bit, but also he's a true freshman. He's raced this course before, set Missouri high school records on it. I was impressed by his gutsiness. He strided out well, and then to get gassed a little bit and feel that exhaustion in the 4K, but still place 5th by the finish, that's impressive, and that takes a lot of guts. So I don't know if we'll see him in the starting line. Livermore was very tight to the chest in his preseason interview as to who we would see later on, but Hauser definitely made a case for himself in that.
So,
and then on the
Abigail, how many people can Mizzou officially have in a race to have them score?
It depends on
how there were some unattached people.
Yes. So unattached means you're not wearing the Missouri uniform. So different invitationals will allow different rules as far as unattached runners. Since Missouri hosted, they could allow as many as they wanted. As far as how many race, typically 7 are on the starting line. Like national championships, you're going to race 7. 5 will score. But often it comes down to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th runner who is going to tack on points to other teams. It's often not your top scorers. It's the placement of those 3rd, 4th, and 5th and whether or not they can get ahead of other teams' 3rd, 4th, and 5th runners. That's where that pack strategy, the pack running strategy comes in so clutch for the Tigers when executed well. And already they're showing signs of having a next level of toughness to close those gaps that I didn't see out of them necessarily last season, where I think that pack running execution is where Livermore wants it to be, or at least a good starting point. On the women's side, we talked about the power of new runners. They brought in transfer Rahel Ramel. She won the race by 12.5 seconds, which I can't quite understate because this meant that she was running by herself for the final 3K. And she pushed the pace the entire way. Like to be able to run by yourself and chasing the gator and still have that resilience to say, yeah, I'm going to challenge myself in this last K and set my fastest split yet. You can tell she is a veteran championship runner. You can see it in her face. You can feel it in her stride. She absolutely looked like she had more left in the tank when she crossed the finish line. She has her eyes set on November. Livermore spoke incredibly highly of her preseason, and she lived up to all the rumors. She's also just incredibly friendly. Dylan and I got to interview her after the race. Super kind, super down to earth, was constantly pushing the compliments and praise back onto her team. Seems like she's adjusting to the new city well, and I'm just super excited. I cannot wait to see her race against Jennifer Schwartz, Nicole Lowe, get that pack running back. Isabella Christensen is still on the roster, had a little bit of a down curve last season. It's always hard to tell whether or not some of these runners are battling injuries. Injury reports are a little less clear within cross country, so I'm not sure who else we'll see at the top for the women, but she will definitely be there. She belongs. She's definitely earned her spot. As far as where Missouri fits in the national scheme of things, I mentioned this in the first episode, but when it comes to cross country, regional opponents outrank conference opponents because you need to place in your top 2 in your region to qualify for nationals as a team. Missouri is in the Midwest region. The USTF-CCCA has them placed at 7th preseason for the men and 10th for the women. I think that's very fair as far as their placements last season. But even to have a few of those individuals continue inching up, I'm not sure I see them as a team, but they definitely have some individuals that are within the realm of conversation if they continue to race like they did at the opener. And I'm super excited to see Ryder James, Blake Morris back joining Tyler Feiner up front for the men.
So what's up next for the cross country team?
They have 2 bye weeks, although in cross country, it's not really a bye week. You just need that time for training. And then they will head to the Blue Spike Invitational at Penn State, which is a course that's very familiar to Livermore. He coached at Georgetown, and it's again against a lot of his East Coast opponents who I think he's excited to test his Tigers up against some top tier talent. Penn State, both, I want to say, qualified for national championships last season. So, yeah.
Awesome. So I guess what's to come for you will be a preview or a recap or something along those lines about that upcoming meet.
Yes, I also want to interview Feiner, and then I want to go out to the course and do a run with me. I don't know if I'm going to do the audio while I'm running, but I want to bring one of the athletes with me or the coach and get a little perspective on the course, since then they will come back to Mizzou right after Penn State. So familiarize people with the Gams Creek course, see what it looks like before they run the 6K and 10K there.
That's fun. I love that idea, especially because some of us will never get out there to watch a cross country meet at 7:30 in the morning. That's me. I will never.
It's a little early, but the sunrises are worth it. Oh, I was just going to mention a few more just to shout out, because I don't think they get shouted out enough. Kyle Evermore mentioned this is Allison Newman's first season back post-injury. She placed 11th, and as far as I could tell, looked great, looked comfortable. And Josh Allison was a new runner for the Tigers. He's our Southern Illinois transfer, and he took second right behind Feiner. He looked like he wanted that first place finish, and that's always good to have that in your mind heading into the next meet. So both of them also competed well.
So I'm guessing you got to talk to Livermore after the meet was over, right? Did he say anything interesting about how he thought that the teams did?
Livermore is always a bit of a not glass half full, not glass half empty. The water is right where it's at, and don't get too excited about it. Mm-hmm. It's just where it's at. He mentioned how the race is basically, quote, insignificant within the full scheme of the season, and he's entirely right. It is an invitational. They didn't run their full roster. They didn't run their starting runners. I thought it was a good showcase of their new talent, but Livermore's never going to get too high on the highs or low on the lows. He said, we're going to celebrate this for, I think, 10 seconds or 10 minutes and then get our heads down and keep working. So I've learned how to adjust my questions, because you don't want to ever have too much enthusiasm. He's going to bring you back down to earth, but I think that is a good sign of a quality coach leading his team. Keep the focus forward.
That sounds a lot like Brian Smith.
Yeah.
That's how Brian Smith is too.
He's very level when answering questions.
Yeah.
And then at this point, I'm going to mark down the time. We will put in Rory's update about golf. Men's and women's golf are getting started. So she will have some updates for us about that. Let's switch over to out of season sports. I don't think that there's a whole lot going on. I know that there isn't anything with women's basketball. Wrestling, Matthew, I know you have a quick update about opponent.
Yep. So we got the second piece of info officially released on the Mizzou 2024-25 schedule. They're going to be making the return trip to Blacksburg, Virginia. They're going to face Virginia Tech, the Hokies, on Friday, November 5th. Or actually, no, 15th. November 15th at Casella Coliseum. That's going to be 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Mizzou took a very narrow 22-17 win against Virginia Tech in Columbia last season, but they lost 17-15 the last time that they faced Virginia Tech on the road. This is going to be a really good dual meet. And then some of you may remember last year's matchup for kind of the breakout moment for Cade Moore. He pinned Sam Latona. This was still when we really didn't know much about him. He pinned Sam Latona, who was then ranked in the top 5 of his weight class, and that pin gave Mizzou the 6 points they needed to win the duel. So that was kind of when we were like, okay, this guy is for real. He's going to be really good. Although I may not be the person driving the Cade Moore hype train, but I'm definitely like the engineer shoveling the coal into the engine. I think he's going to be really good this year. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he can have a good encore performance. That's really the main thing from last season's duel with Virginia Tech. So it should be really close. Like I said, 2 really quality programs, and should be a lot of fun to watch.
Hey everybody, glad I could join you this week. Now, it's not my typical way to show up on Majority Rules, but I just wanted to come on here and say a couple words about the Mizzou men's golf team. They open up their season shortly over in Canada before coming back here at the end of the month to play stateside in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Now, I feel like a big worry with this Mizzou golf team is the loss of Jack Lundeen, which is understandable. He led this Tiger team last year and was an all-around just key component to this team, and it's why they went so far to the NCAA regionals and why they performed so well. But if you want to look at the regionals, you can't look at those scores without focusing on Brock Snyder, and he's back for his second year. In his freshman year campaign, he posted a stroke average of 72.75 and competed in 3 tournaments. Now, that's not a ton of tournaments, but as a freshman, that's a great mark to have and a great way to get out there. And looking again at those regionals, he set a program freshman record and was the 3rd best score of any player in the entire regional. So don't fear, Tiger fans. That was the end of the year. We're coming up on the start. He's going to want to take that momentum straight into this season. Additionally, another player to watch on this team is Gibraltar Sigbranderson. Last season, he played in a career best 9 tournaments, which is a little different from Brock Snyder. So he's bringing that veteran leadership and that skill. He had a stroke average of 73.85. Now, he is a member of the Icelandic national team and was a big get for the Tigers 4 years ago from Europe. So these 2 players, while that's not the full team, are going to be key players to keep an eye out for. Now, again, as I said, they open up their season on September 16th. So I will keep you guys updated on all things Mizzou men's golf. You can also find an article shortly, which will be posted on the site, and I'll be coming with you with some weekly updates about them. Additionally, I just want to make a quick note real quick. If you're thinking, what's the big goal for Mizzou men's golf? Well, they have many goals. They made it to the NCAA regional last year, and while they didn't make it out of that regional, they'll be looking to do that this year. However, if they even get to that regional, that is 4 appearances in a row for your Missouri Tigers, which is a career best for this program. So they're looking to make that mark and put their name in the history books. So additionally, if you look at the Missouri women's golf team, they open up their season a lot sooner on September 8th in Kentucky before coming to Columbia, yes, your Columbia, Missouri, on September 23rd. So any locals tuning in, watching, please find your way to this tournament. It'll be great to watch. My Tiger to look out for them is Addie Dobson. Now, like the men's team, they lost a couple key players, but it's not going to be the end of the road. I have much faith in them. There's plenty to keep an eye on moving forward with this team, and I'll have plenty of updates for you. Now, I don't have a ton of information on this women's golf team, but that's because of an article coming to you guys shortly. So, yeah.
And then Abigail, back to you. I think you have an update about Sterling and something about Paralympics.
Yes, so technically track and field collegiately is out of season, but Sterling Scott has been competing since January and just capped off the season, taking 5th at the Under-20 World Athletic Championships in Lima, Peru. He set a personal best in the triple jump and was the top qualifier in his heat, 2nd overall heading into the final. He jumped 16.29 meters. And then this is always a little heartbreaking. He only jumped 16.09 meters in the final. And so in looking at those distances, I was like, oh, that's a bummer. But thankfully, that would have only been good for 4th in the final. So the final, they blew those distances out of the water. So he did take 5th, which is still incredibly impressive. We're talking about him being the 5th farthest jumper in the entire world under 20. Remember, he's a true freshman, incredibly young, and he was the second American overall. And like I said, I think it's really important to highlight how he's been competing since January. And my coach preview a long while back with Coach Shimov, the jumps coach at Missouri, he talked about when training these track and field athletes, their peaks are not necessarily just SEC indoors and outdoors and NCAAs. You have athletes competing at an international level like Sterling Scott who are thinking all the way ahead to August for Worlds or prior to that Olympics. Right. And so just thinking about being the architect of those training plans all the way back to January, you're seeing the fruits of that labor, and incredibly impressive. Excited that he will return for the Tigers in this coming winter. And then we also have a Tiger competing at the Paralympics, which is unbelievably exciting. Her name is Amaris Vazquez Collazo. She was actually the flag bearer for Puerto Rico at the opening ceremony. She doesn't compete on the Tigers team. She trains independently. She actually transferred to Missouri last spring to be closer to her trainer who lives in St. Louis. And she is going for the triple threat. So she's going to compete in the 200, 100, and long jump. And I already have some of her results. She took 12th, setting a season best 4.1 meters in the women's T64 long jump. And she set a season best 33.02 seconds in the women's T64 200-meter dash. So if you want to put up the best times and distances, the Paralympics is the place to do it. Congratulations to her in both of those events. And she has one event remaining. She will race the 100-meter dash Thursday. So very, very exciting. Just incredibly impressive to have several Missouri athletes competing at the world stage.
Yeah, that is so cool. Thank you for sharing that. For me, I do not have much. Softball wise, I'm just going to continue this trend of announcing where former Tigers end up for real world jobs. So congrats to Lauren Krings, who was hired at the University of Minnesota as the director of player development, I believe. She has just finished her first professional summer season out in Long Island alongside former Tigers Alex Honnold and Jenna Laird. So now she is stepping into her first professional role. So that's really awesome. You know, would love to see her be a Tiger again one day, but we'll allow it. We'll allow it. For gymnastics, no real updates from me. I'm still begging Shannon and Jackie for information. Every time my notifications go off and I see gymnastics Twitter, I'm like, is this going to be it? Is this going to be it? No, it's never been it. Like today, it was something about an open gym. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to message Jackie and tell her that, you know, that's really cool. But you know what also would be really cool? To give writers access to the new athletes and allow us to see them. And she wrote back almost immediately and said they were just talking about it today and they're working on it. So win for Karen. Be annoying and I may get my way. So what else? Oh, I did not share this since we don't have any gymnastics to watch. And I forgot to share this last week. I spent quite a bit of time looking through this, trying to decide if anything different had happened. If it looked like there was anybody new on an apparatus or something like that. We did see some different things. There's a person on bars coming up. That is one Amari Celestine, who we were told last year was hurt and would never be on bars again. And she's back on bars. And per my very smart colleague named Carlsman, he said that is not even just like she's just swinging bars. He was like, that is an intentional skills that she's doing. So he thinks Amari may be back on the bars. In which case, does that mean that she's not on the beam? Is she an all-arounder? Like, we don't know. We also saw Kira Burns on vault. She only appeared on vault as like Mizzou's secret weapon once last year because she has a problem with plantar fasciitis, which if you've ever had that, it is a terrible, terrible pain. I've had it. Maybe she has worked through that because she definitely was seen in that video working on vault, and she would be a great person to have as well. The only other thing I have is kind of a other SEC gymnastics news type of thing. Olympic bronze medalist Hesley Rivera took her first official visit to Florida. Rude. But honestly, I was thinking I could see her there with fellow elite gymnasts, including like Leanne Wong, who was an alternate for the Paris Olympics, Kayla DiCello, who, had she not gotten hurt at Olympic trials, she likely would have been an alternate for the Paris Olympics as well. And then you have people like the Blakely sisters and Anya Pilgrim. So I can see how she would fit in there. I would like to point out, though, if she wants to go to a school with a good football team, she should probably think about Mizzou, right? I mean, like, Mizzou won their first game. Florida didn't win, right? Right?
Not by a long
Didn't even get
shot.
close.
And also, I just think HEZ to MIZ sounds really freaking cool. And we should get that chant going to get Hesley to Mizzou, HEZ to MIZ. Come on.
I think you should reach out to her for branding opportunities. The NIL deals are already cooking.
Yes.
Clearly our priorities are in place.
Right. It has a really nice ring to it. I just think that she should just really take advantage of that. So that really is about all we have. You guys, we went shorter this time. So I will say again, just like I said last week, one last thing before we get out of here, please head to rockmnation.com and support the work of so many student journalists and some really amazing other writers as well. Last week alone, we put out 45 articles. 45. And there's probably more coming this week. So support us by reading our work, as well as everybody at Rock M Nation. And you can also support us by subscribing to this podcast feed. For the Rock M Radio podcast feed, leave us 5-star review and join our subscription service, Rock M Plus. It is only $5 a month. Super cheap. So that's all we have. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Go Tigers! Oh, let's try this again. MIZ.
They're both muted. You have to give them a second on.
MIZ.
ZOU.
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 Bye.
We'll get it right next time.
Dear Rock M Plus listeners, readers, and subscribers, we are thrilled to announce our first ever digital Mizzou football review magazine. Inspired by the iconic newsstand staples like Athlon, Phil Steele, and Street and Smith, our team has created a PDF file jam-packed full of content for you to learn about the most anticipated Missouri football season maybe in history. Checking in at about 100 pages, we have in-depth previews of all 12 opponents, analysis of each position group, profiles of newcomers, exclusive photographs, features like a retrospective on the 2014 team, the evolution of Faurot Field, Luther Burden's place in Mizzou history, and more. We also have an analytics Q&A with Bill Connolly of ESPN, the founder of Rock M. We also have college football preview content and much more. This digital magazine is available now. It is $15 for purchase, with discounts available for premium Rock M Plus subscribers based on your membership tier. $10 for monthly members, $5 if you have an annual membership. Now is the time to become a member to secure your discount on this one-of-a-kind product today. We know that you're going to love this magazine, and we can't wait to have it on your devices. MIZ.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.